3, 2, 1. What's up, everyone? It's Dakota, and welcome back to another Pioneer video. And it's kind of weird to have a Pioneer video on Monday because I normally post about Modern, but with spoiler season starting on Tuesday, I decided that I'm going to push up the Pioneer deck to Monday, and we're going to be looking at spoilers and things like that, and all things about the Modern format as we kind of go through Modern Horizons 3 spoilers, even though we are in the middle of Pioneer RCQ season. I don't know who was in charge of that, who thought that was a good idea. Maybe we could have waited on Modern Horizons 3 until the beginning of the RCQ season, but it is what it is. So, of course, today we're going to be looking at 4-color Indomitable Creativity. This deck is a little interesting thanks to the release of Outlaws of Thunder Junction, specifically the big score like subset that is inside the set that would have been outside of the set if, you know, the March of the Machines Aftermath did at least a smidgen better. So, of course, before we get too deep into the deck and we talk about what's going on here, if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to see more videos from me, where I post a lot of Modern and Pioneer content along with some other longer form videos, so if anything that interests you, please consider subscribing to the channel and, of course, ring the notification bell. Be on the lookout for some new things kind of coming to the channel if you're a returning watcher. Thank you for doing so. We're going to be trying to get some arena stuff going on. I actually have a series that I'm looking to start, and I'm hoping to post probably like sometime in the middle of the week, so be on the lookout for that as well. So we have 4-color Indomitable Creativity. This is a 12th place list from the Pioneer Challenge on May 16th. And it's an interesting take on creativity where most of the creativity decks before were kind of all in on Atraxa. If you played Modern, they were into, you know, things like Archon of Cruelty and kind of sideboarding into some different things. And this deck has a pretty interesting take because it is playing the card Vaultborn Tyrant. So this is the new card from that big score set from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. It is a 7-mana, 6/6 Trampling Dinosaur that whenever it or another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, gain 3 life and draw a card. When it dies, if it's not a token, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. So with this, you could creativity for 2, potentially hit 2 Vaultborn Tyrants. So you're going to get 2 triggers, one from this Vaultborn entering the battlefield, and then, of course, the other one, and then the other one's going to see itself, and then you're going to see the other Vaultborn Tyrant. So you're going to get 4 triggers total to draw 4 cards and gain 12 life. And then, of course, if you go even higher, then you have Atraxa, which you're going to draw an additional 2 cards and gain an additional 6 life, plus all the cards that you're going to get from Atraxa and things like that. So definitely a pretty powerful kind of setup and whatnot. I mean, with anything, you know, which this is a card here we're talking about, Indomitable Creativity. So you can pay triple red and X, destroy X target artifacts and or creatures. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal an artifact or a creature card, and they exile that card. Then those players put the exiled cards onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So this is how you're enabling all this. These are the things that you're going to get from your Indomitable Creativity. So now how are we enabling it? So obviously one of the things that we have to do to kind of make sure that we hit Vaultborn Tyrants or Atraxas, and to make sure that we don't play any other artifacts and we don't play any other creatures. But if we need to destroy artifacts and creatures to be able to get these, how are we going to do that? So we have a card like the Wandering Emperor, which is, you know, kind of this annoying card that can act as like a removal spell. Of course, exiling a tapped creature, gaining 2 life, getting to play this at instant speed, so your opponent's not going to be able to attack it down. And then, of course, on your turn, you can then minus to create a 2/2 Samurai creature token with Vigilance. So this is going to be like a way that you can make a token that you can then, you know, hit away with the Indomitable Creativity. You have things like Deduce, which draws a card and investigates, which means that you create a clue token, which is a lot harder for your opponent to interact with. Of course, like creatures and stuff, they're able to be kind of cut down by, you know, some of the removal spells in the format, like Fatal Push, Go for the Throat. You have Fiery Temper and, not Fiery Temper, the Lightning Axes and things like that. I believe it is Fiery Temper. No, it's not Fiery Temper. Yeah, it's one of them. Anyway, like those creatures are susceptible to that kind of removal, where your clue tokens and things like that are not. So you're able to actually just, you know, play your Deduce. You're going to end up drawing a card, and you're going to have a clue token that if you need to cash in later for a card, you can. If not, it's just going to be fodder for your Indomitable Creativities. Get Lost is like a weird one that you could do where you could destroy target creature, enchantment, or planeswalker. You could target your own Wandering Emperor or your own Wandering Emperor, you know, the token that you make from your Wandering Emperor. and what have you. And then Get Lost is going to have its controller create 2 map tokens. So this is a way that, after you've, played your Wandering Emperor on whatever turn, you can actually just like blow it up, get your value from it, and then you'll have enough things to kind of like target 3 different things in Indomitable Creativity, so you can get all of your things out, which is pretty neat. Looks like not No More Lies. The technically Sunfall can as well, because it'll incubate, which is a artifact token that has X+1/+1 counters on it. You pay 2 to transform it into a 0/0 creature. So this is like a roundabout way where you can kind of like clear the board and then follow it up with a creativity, at least using the Sunfall created token. You have Fable the Mirror Breaker, 4 copies, so this is also a way that you can like attack with like the Goblin token and then end up making your treasure token as well. This is like another thing that you can target. Of course, you have the Goblin Shaman token itself. You have Shark Typhoon, where you can cycle this to make a shark. So like 3 mana, you can make a 1/1, and then it curves right into like turn 4 creativity, where you can wheel into a Vaultborn Tyrant or an Atraxa Grand Unifier. Some of the other spells, you have like Torch the Tower as like a way that you can kind of interact with creatures early. Same thing with like Lightning Helix for 2 mana. You have 4 No More Lies, so you can kind of interact with your opponent a little bit. The turn that they go to tap out, you counter their spell, untap, and then slam a creativity. You have things like Get Lost that we kind of put it out earlier. That's just kind of like nice catch-all removal. Dovin's Veto is an uncounterable negate. You have Chain to the Rocks, which is a kind of nice removal. It looks like you're playing a decent amount of mountains in the deck, so Chain to the Rocks is always going to have a target to enchant. High Noon is also a new card from the Outlaws of Thunder Junction set. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn, and you can pay 5 mana and sacrifice it, deal 5 damage to any target. So this is like something you can play early. You're going to end up kind of like playing on your opponent's turn anyway. You have a decent amount of things that you can do, which lines up very well with like No More Lies and Dovin's Veto and things like that, where if your opponent is just tapping out to play creatures and they can only play 1 spell a turn, you know that you're going to be able to cast No More Lies. You're going to be able to, as long as they can't pay, you're going to be able to target the spell and then more than likely be able to untap and Indomitable Creativity for whatever you need. Which is just kind of a neat addition to the deck. So, and technically, dealing 5 damage is not nothing, especially to any target. It does take out a decent amount of creatures in the format. And again, like kind of using this more as like a way to lock your opponent in. It's very hard once you kind of go for your creativity turn and be able to protect these creatures and then slam a High Noon. That's going to be hard for your opponent, short of things like their own Sunfalls or whatever, to kind of deal with the board. And even if they deal with the board, these Vaultborn Tyrants get to come back as well when they die, as long as they're not tokens. So something that's pretty interesting. You could even go like creativity for 1, get a Vaultborn Tyrant, and then creativity targeting a Vaultborn, and then you get the Vaultborn back, and then more of your things too. So just kind of some interesting synergies in the deck. The sideboard, you have Dovin's Vetoes, you have another High Noon, Rest in Peace for the graveyard decks, you have Anger of the Gods, again for more of those like go wide decks, something like a Izzet Phoenix is going to be, where Anger of the Gods is going to be pretty good. The Amalia decks in some ways are pretty good, considering the fact that if you kind of like tag their stuff before they can really get going with like Amalia, that you can get rid of a lot of their like life gainers, and they're not going to be able to go with something like an Extraction Specialist to go get them back. You have Mystical Disputes as like cheap counters against blue decks. 4, Leyline of Sanctity is going to protect you against discard spells. This is very important because you definitely need a critical mass of cards. You're going to be digging for Indomitable Creativity, and you're hoping that your kind of first creativity slams the door on the game, and certainly the second one does, and Leyline of Sanctity will do that. And then finally, we have 2, Hullbreaker Horror. A spell that can't be countered, and then whenever you cast a spell, you can return a spell you don't control to its owner's hand, or return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So getting the creativity into this and leave up mana definitely allows you to kind of protect the Hullbreaker Horror, especially with like some of these other cheap spells where you can just kind of start bouncing things, and as you play spells, you can start bouncing some of your opponent's more annoying non-land permanents and stuff. So that is the deck. That is 4-color Indomitable Creativity. It's kind of an interesting take on the deck because normally we see these decks be all in on Atraxa Grand Unifier. They're just trying to basically put one into play. You see more like Transmogrify in the deck. And thanks to Vaultborn Tyrant existing now in the format, it definitely gives creativity decks another target. We would see kind of like the blue-red or like Jeskai creativity decks lean more towards like the Blue Gear Hulk, so they can go and flashback things like a Magma Opus and whatnot to just generate a ton of value. It also put like a 5-6 into play and whatnot. Just have a ton of power and disruption for your opponent and stuff like that. And thanks to Vaultborn Tyrant, I've even seen some decks that just kind of go all in on Vaultborn and play like 4 copies of this, which could be correct, but this list is pretty sweet. Just again, having like the access to the one Atraxa and a decent amount of interaction as well. You know, if you have a pretty good understanding of the meta game and kind of like what's going on, you know, you can definitely maximize like Dovin's Vetoes, Lightning Helixes, No More Lies, and some of the more interactive pieces in the deck, kind of more reminiscent of what the 4-color creativity decks are in Modern, where they can play a pretty reactive slash, I guess, more of a reactive game plan to kind of what's going on until they find like their opening to slam their creativity for a bunch. Put a ton of Archons in play. This deck just gets to put Dinosaurs and Phyrexian Angel in play. So pretty neat stuff. But yeah, that's 4-color and double creativity for the Pioneer format. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see new decks in the future, more decks in the future, be sure to subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, and comment down below what decks that you would like to see in the future. We're definitely getting towards the end of Pioneer RCQ season, so definitely want to get out to your qualifiers and things like that if you're not already qualified for the regional championship in Washington, D.C. It's going to be the first one hosted by Star City Games as well, and they usually put on some pretty good shows and things like that. So definitely something worth, you know, qualifying for if you haven't, and then, you know, I guess even if you don't, if they have some side events and things like that, go ahead and crush the side events because they're a lot of fun to participate in and whatnot. So yeah, that's going to do it for me in this video. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all in the next one.